again, and a very warm welcome to June's episode of Inside TYPO3, coming live from this month's community sprint here in Düsseldorf. Today, we're sitting down with TYPO3 CEO Daniel Pfau to discuss all things T3CON 24.
We also spoke with PHPUnit creator and friend of the community, Sebastian Bergmann, to discuss the recent collaboration work with our core team and what we can expect from his talks at this year's Developer Days. We also had some new faces at this week's community sprint. So, like any good podcast show, we followed them around the office and made them feel awkward until they agreed to come on the show, tell us about their experiences from the very first sprint.
But first, let's start off like we always do, by catching up on the latest release information.
This month, we saw the release of TYPO3 version 11.5.38 and 12.4.16, which are both maintenance releases. Moving on to community extensions, MFA Frontend introduced support for TYPO3 version 13 with its 1.2 release. Sitecrawler returns with support for version 12 in its latest release, and a warm welcome back to Thomas. And finally, the ever-popular news extension saw a minor update with the release of version 11.4.2. Next, we have events.
First up in July, we have the TYPO3 camp in Hamburg. Come meet and network with the TYPO3 community at this annual camp. Spots are still available for those interested. Next, we're headed to Berlin for the We Are Developers Conference. TYPO3 has a presence at this event, so be sure to drop by and say hello. And finally, mark your calendars for Developer Days from August 1st to 3rd. We're returning to Karlsruhe for another round of coding, networking, and fun in the sun.
Next up is our first feature of today's episode, where Kendall sits down with TYPO3 CEO Daniel Pfau to find out about all the latest news with this year's T3CON.
We're joined by Daniel Pfau to talk about T3CON. So let's talk about the structure for T3CON this year and what's changed from last year.
Hi, Kendall. Yeah, so what changed? We added a third day. We call it the Public Sector Day, which is sort of misleading because it's a German-speaking day. So public sector would mean universities, governments all at once due to high demand. The special thing about that is it will be a free day. So the tickets for that special day, that specific day, will be free for all. Yeah.
So open to the public?
Open to the public.
Okay.
If it's interesting to the public, of course. It's so if you work in the public sector, you're free to join, and it's the Tuesday before the regular speaking English days.
Okay, so there's a third day added, the new theme day for the public sector and higher education. What about the award categories? What's new for this year?
In total, we have 5 new categories. It's media, news and publishing, intranets and extranets. Special about those are that you have to submit with a little extra information because we mostly cannot see intranets and extranets. And we do have a Best Camp award, which is basically our community award. So you will have to vote for your favorite TYPO3 camp, and we will take the average voting result as the ranking factor for whoever wins that award category. So there's not an advantage for a huge camp, so it's not the amount of votes you get. And last but not least, that is certainly TYPO3 specific. We do have a legacy and heritage, which means if we have a long-lasting TYPO3 project as we enter the 26th and 27th year by 2025 of TYPO3, it's basically if you have a long-standing project, that will be rewarded. So it's interesting if you have something that has been carried and migrated and updated for maybe decades.
And with the award categories, can people submit for more than one category?
They can. So for some reasons, if your project doesn't apply to it, we will, of course, tell you, and a submission won't be valid, of course. But you basically can submit for multiple categories, and some categories you cannot submit your projects for.
Okay.
Those will be selected, which means like website of the year, again, like last year, we will pick the website of the year out of the winners of the other categories. So there's not I just want to win the most prestigious award. You have to apply for a category.
Okay. And then speaking of awards, the ceremony was also moved this year, correct?
Yeah, correct. So fun fact, do not do award ceremonies before the last exhibition day. So we have less people attending, surprisingly, after the award ceremony than on the first day. So the award ceremony moved to the last evening. So we all can wear our cocktail attire this year, and we will celebrate and spend the night together, have a good time, and no one has to view each other at the next day. sort of wasted, which sometimes happens.
Sure, save the best for last. And then, so going back to the conference, how's the lineup coming along? What can you tell us about some of the topics or the schedule so far?
So the schedule is not yet set because the conference is still a long way to go in November. But we have a few topics fixed, which is, of course, we will cover the legal topics, data protection, something for the EVB IT cloud in Germany. We will, of course, tackle AI. I think we can already mention Professor Dr. Glauner, who is a consultant of the Bundesregierung, of the German government.
Oh, wow.
And we do have some agency-specific topics, which is, of course, how do you position yourself? And, of course, a lot of TYPO3.
And so after quite a pause of having the conference and then coming back last year, there was a lot of feedback that the GmbH received about the conference. Can you share a little bit about what that feedback was and, specifically with the lightning talks and the structures and how it's being implemented in this year's conference?
Even more than the lightning talk. So I will share the good and the bad. Let's start with the bad so we can end with the good.
Sure.
The bad things were, of course, we received a lot of feedback that the noise was too much inside of our conference hall. So we had the catering inside the conference hall. We moved that to a hall next to our main venue. So you have to walk, I think, 10 meters. Even if it's November, it's still okay to walk there, the 10 meters walk. So you are able to understand the speakers way better. Angled the speaking area in the 90-degree angle, so the voice direction is different, so that also helps. And we will, of course, use a carpet, absorb noise a little bit better. This will also help the exhibition area, so exhibition area +1, I'd say. We had to reserve some space for the catering, so that will be moved, which means our exhibitors can use that space, so the exhibition area will even be a bit wider and more spacious. So it's a great place for networking. So that will stay, and that was already a good thing. The networking effect was amazing. So the best feedback we had for talking to people, being available, the presence everyone had, and yes, last but not least, that's what you probably wanted to hear.
Sure.
The lightning talks. We changed the format a bit. So last year we had 2 lightning talk areas that were hosted by the agencies. They had a lot of content, and a few of the visitors said they would have liked to be more specific and focused on those lightning talks, which means we have only 1 more remaining lightning talk area. And in total, we will have 9 lightning talks. So it's not so easy to get a lightning talk again. So you have to pitch your best idea so we can leverage the quality here as well. And of course, any visitor can attend that lightning talk.
Okay, and that kind of dovetails into my next question, which is a bigger one, but I wanted to talk a little bit about, as an agency, why it's important to be present at the exhibition and what the benefits are of being an exhibitor, which I also know is being able to submit for a lightning talk.
True, yes. So I think there's a simple value, which is return on invest. So as an exhibitor, you can give away free tickets to your clients, your partners. So that already tries to cover for most of the exhibition fee. So I think that's important to know for all of the agencies out there. If you have a booth at the T3CON 2024, you can give away free tickets. So that is helpful. Even to inform your clients, to give them a feeling on how the TYPO3 spirit really unfolds in the world, which is also a reason why you will reach people outside of your bubble. So the TYPO3 bubble is basically very, very enclosed. So we have the TYPO3 camps. Anything we say has TYPO3 in its name. And the TYPO3 conference is the only event that is open to everyone. And by having exhibitors that are non-TYPO3, for example, a payment provider, Yatta, they will join the TYPO3 conference as well. They already checked in on their booth. And of course, they will invite different people. And we have a lot of corporations. They will invite their clients and their members as well. So you can reach outside your bubble. And of course, last but not least, the lightning talks. You have to be an exhibitor to get one.
So as we know, award submissions are now open. We've done some communications around that. I wanted to get your perspective on winning a TYPO3 award and as an agency and what that can do to deepen your credibility within the ecosystem or a provider.
That's actually a hard one because we do not measure that. So it always depends on how you work with the result as an agency. So if you just get the award and do nothing with it, that's a problem. So let's start on the top. The website of the year will, as of last year, get a case study on TYPO3.com. So that has a real value because a case study usually is pretty expensive, at least on the official website. That could be a motivation. And after that, of course, you're very visible to the community. So it outlines your quality approach and your way of working. And yes, of course, we will leverage it. So all of the winners will be featured on social media on our channels. So I think it helps the whole community. It's not that sole benefit for an agency. It's just like, let us all together celebrate what we achieved.
Sure. And just as a reminder, the award submissions close September 15th. So projects need to be wrapped up by that date, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. And also visit T3CON24.typo3.com simply because we changed a few things and explain a few things more on how to submit your project and what is measured and what the jury will look at. So you can prepare accordingly.
And from my understanding, at least in a change for this year, what was important was adding as much information as you can. So really explaining the project and giving a thorough overview of what was done to help the jurors understand better. So lastly, any final thoughts on the conference or the awards that you'd like to share with the community?
Very simple ones. So those basically never change, as we all, especially after COVID, started to see and meet people again. I think the T3CON is about presence and availability. So, of course, all the contents can be found online, but the networking part of it and that build a network, grow together, inspire other people to just engage in the community and to maybe get back some optimism for the next year. That might be the biggest impact. So that is also the feedback of all our visitors from last year. The spirit is very well alive.
And will you be making coffee at the conference?
Probably not personally, but yes. That might be an outtake in the end. But the coffee last year wasn't as expected, especially not if you think of I initiated that conference again. So the coffee will be better this year.
Another feedback.
Yeah, another feedback, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us today. And if anyone has any questions, they know where to find us.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Multiple events until then.
Yes.
Thanks.
And now a word from our first agency partner, GAYA.
GAYA is a distinguished TYPO3 partner and digital strategist in France. With over 2 decades of innovation, GAYA excels in crafting, developing, and maintaining advanced digital platforms that drive strategic communication. Located in the heart of Paris, their team of experts specialize in delivering scalable and robust digital solutions tailored to diverse needs, ensuring optimal performance and user-centric design. A seasoned and versatile digital agency, GAYA is your go-to partner for elevating your digital presence. Additionally, GAYA delivered an award-winning solution with Senate.fr, winning the TYPO3 Award for Best Government Website in 2023. Discover how GAYA's expertise can benefit your organization by visiting their website, GAYA.fr, or reach out at contact@GAYA.fr.
And now let's hear from Tom as he sits down with PHPUnit creator Sebastian Bergmann.
Sebastian Bergmann, thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. I know this is a bit of an unplanned interview, but I'm really grateful that you've taken the time to speak to us this week at the Community Sprint. I wanted to find out about the work you're doing with our core team this week. As I understand, they've introduced a fix for PHPUnit 11, if I'm right.
Yeah, so thank you for having me. A couple of days ago, I got a report first from Garvin and then from Stefan that somehow PHPUnit 11.2 caused tests to fail in the TYPO3 CI pipeline. And I found that very confusing because I did not expect that this change would have, the change in question would have such a negative impact. And it's just that I did not anticipate the effect of that. So I was quite thankful, like I usually am when I get a bug report, because obviously it points out I missed something. I need to look into something. And to me, that was like a bizarre edge case within an edge case within an edge case. So in a perfectly perfect world, PHPUnit would only support doubling based on interfaces, like you stub an interface or you stub or you mock an interface. But PHPUnit has, since it has had the testable functionality, support for stubbing and mocking extendable classes, which is a lot more complicated to implement and to get right than stubbing and mocking based on just interfaces, because interfaces are much cleaner. They do not come with any implementation attached that you need to get rid of. And now PHP recently added support for read-only classes. And PHPUnit did not have support yet for stubbing and mocking extendable read-only classes, so I implemented that. But the implementation broke some tests that TYPO3 has, which do something that is called partial mocking, like mocking a class but not replacing all the methods of that class with a mockable, configurable implementation. And in the very specific case, the constructor was not mocked. It remained the original implementation, and some methods were mocked and some methods were not mocked, but the constructor called a method that was mocked. And at that point in time, the test double state was not yet initialized, so we ran into an issue. So yeah, I'm very happy that I was able late last night to fix that issue, and I tested it this morning together with Stefan and others in the TYPO3 CI pipeline, and have since released PHPUnit 11.2.1.
And is this fix likely to affect other frameworks and CMSs as well in the future, do you think?
It will definitely affect everyone who does the very same or a very similar thing, like partial mocking without mocking the constructor. In my personal experience, I have not really seen that, so that's why I did not have a test for that,
right? Because
I did not think that somebody would do something like that. Which, by the way, should not mean in any way that I say, oh, if you do something like that, that's stupid, or you should not be doing that. Maybe you shouldn't be doing that, but I don't want to judge like that. It is a bug, and the bug has been fixed. It's just that I did not think about a use case like that, which is why there was not already a test in PHPUnit for that use case. So sure, others might be affected by that as well. Yeah.
Oh, fair enough. And I'm assuming you're with us for the rest of the week. Will you be working on anything else with our
I'm
courses?
here for 2 days, for today and tomorrow.
Oh, fair enough. Okay. And could you tell me about your history with TYPO3? When did you start working with us, or have you worked with us in the past, or is this the first time you've done much with us?
So I have to say that I do not have any personal experience really with TYPO3. So other than, like, for instance, I'm doing volunteer work in a working group for open source software at the German Association for Computer Science. And we have a website, and that website is using TYPO3 because that's what all websites of that association use. So I have experience as a user with it to some very, very, very limited degree. I participated in a TYPO3 code sprint in Hamburg some years ago, probably more than 10 years ago. And back then I was there to basically just be around to help answer any questions related to testing in general and testing with PHPUnit specifically. And basically, that's the plan for this week as well. But this time it was triggered by a very specific problem that some TYPO3 core developers ran into recently when writing integration tests for the installation procedure of TYPO3. And a couple of weeks ago, I had a video call with Stefan about this, and he explained the problem, and I didn't really understand the problem and was therefore not able to come up with a solution to the problem within the time limit of 1 hour that we had given ourselves for the video call. So we decided, hey, we need more time to talk about this and a different setup than just the video call and the screen share to really look into this. And that's the main motivation for me being here today and tomorrow, to look into that issue. But I've already had some really good discussions today with regards to development workflows, the CI pipelines, how TYPO3 is doing certain things, and a lot of questions that come from people like, I have this issue, can you have a look at that? Is this the right thing to do? Do you have a better idea how to do that? So lots of unfocused, if you will, discussions, all made possible by that one focused thing that brought me here.
Awesome, thank you. Looking towards the developer days in August in southern Germany, I understand you're giving 2 presentations for us as well.
Yes, I'm giving one presentation called Testing with Doubles, Why, When, and How. And that is a presentation that is really very dear to me, if a presentation can be dear to somebody, but it's about a topic that I care about a lot, which is getting rid of confusion when it comes to using test doubles. Because most people use these terms, test stub, mock object, interchangeably, but they have a distinct meaning and they're useful in completely different scenarios. And a lot of confusion comes from using mock objects when a test stub would be enough, or using a test stub when you should be using a mock object, and try to get rid of a lot of confusion while at the same time trying to promote best practices, how these features that PHPUnit offers should be used today, because they changed a lot over the last couple of years. And talking about things that changed over the last couple of years, that brings me to the second presentation that I'm giving, PHPUnit 10, 11, and 12, what you need to know and what you should forget. And there are a lot of things that you should forget, because in a project like PHPUnit, which has been around now for 25 years, a lot of features that were useful 25, 20, 15, 10 years ago are no longer relevant today. And you can forget about those, but you can't really not know about them or not get confused by them. Like if you today start doing testing and start using PHPUnit and you look at the documentation, from the documentation it's unfortunately not clear whether this feature that is being explained is relevant today or whether it was relevant in the past. It's a feature and it is in the documentation, and maybe one day I figure out how to better make that clear in the documentation. A lot of functionality that is explained in the documentation is only needed in very specific use cases. You only need to know very little to get a lot done with PHPUnit. So that's one part of that. Like, what are features that you can forget about because you no longer need them? And the other aspect of that talk is a lot of new functionality and convenience features has been implemented over the last couple of years that not enough people know about yet. So that's what I want to change with that talk. Show you shiny new features that I think are useful today and should be used today and should be used more, and highlighting things that you should stay clear of unless you have to deal with them in an older code base where they are already used, so that you can make a judgment whether or not to get rid of them or to keep using them, because in that context it still makes sense. But to be able to make that decision, you need to know what they are, but you only need to know that in that specific context.
If I can ask you a slightly off-topic question to do with PHPUnit's documentation, do you have to write and maintain all of PHPUnit's documentation on your own, or do you have maintainers who help you do that as well?
Unfortunately, I do most of the work on the documentation as well. And I say unfortunately not because I want to get rid of the work, because I do not want to do the work. I mean, I do not want to do the work, but I do it because it has to be done. But I think the documentation would be a lot better if I were not the person to write it, because I tend to leave out things, because to me everything is clear, because I have just implemented a new feature and know how it works, and I know why I wanted to implement the feature, so I understand the motivation. And then writing the documentation for that, because everything in that moment, then and there, is so obvious to me. I make involuntary omissions leading to documentation that is not as good as it could be. So it would be great if somebody else would do more work on the documentation.
Thank you very much for a really interesting interview. And I'd just quickly like to wrap up. If I'm an organization or an individual who makes a living out of using PHP and using PHPUnit, what's the best way that I can contribute back to you and support the work you're doing?
So since it's open source, you cannot buy PHPUnit, but you can pay for it if you want. And there are different ways of doing that. The best way to do so, I would say, is something that is good for me as the maintainer of PHPUnit and good for you as a company building a business using PHP and using PHPUnit. And that is getting consulting, coaching, or training from me on PHPUnit specifically, or PHP software development in general. That's something that I do with my consulting company, the PHP consulting company. You can find us on the internet at the php.cc. And if you do not want to do that for whatever reason, I will gladly take your financial support through either GitHub sponsors or send me an email. And I'll give you an invoice if you need that. Some companies need that. They cannot use GitHub sponsors. And if we go the invoice route, you'll get your company's logo on the PHPUnit website for a period of time.
Awesome. Sebastian Bergmann, thank you very much. And good luck.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Our second podcast partner is QUEO, your expert in transforming challenges into opportunities since 2004. With over 200 experts across 6 locations, QUEO drives innovation in agency business and software development. They champion a philosophy of collective action and continuous improvement, showcasing their commitment through diverse brands like QUEO, ValueTech, and Intolite. Join QUEO in embracing visionary entrepreneurship and sustainable solutions by visiting their website, queo.de, today.
Next up, I sit down with Morgan and Rusby, both of which are attending their very first TYPO3 sprint. In our interviews, we talk about some of the work they're doing this week, and they also share some of their experiences from their very first sprint. Morgan, thank you very much for joining us. It's Thursday afternoon, and we're approaching the end of the sprint. And I just wondered if you could tell me a bit about yourself, where you're from, and what you've been working on this week.
Okay, so my name is Morgan. I come from France, but I work in Switzerland, in Geneva, so the French part of Switzerland.
Wow.
My enterprise is Ideative. Maybe you know this enterprise. Some people are famous in this enterprise in the TYPO3 community, like François Sutter. Yes. So I am a web developer since 5 years now, and I develop in TYPO3 since 2 years for now. So I am a beginner.
Very nice. And what are you working on this week at the sprint?
I'm working on the design backend interface. So I work on some patch. I have already do my first patch, who is published.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. I'm so proud about that.
That's really cool.
And I have do some review also. Many review. That's it.
Very nice. And as first sprints go, have you enjoyed it?
Yes, I'm very, very happy to meet all the community people. There is very friendly and kind, so it's very, very nice to meet.
So this is your first community sprint with us. What would you say, or what message would you have to anybody who would like to participate in their first sprint, but maybe they're unsure or a bit shy or they're not too sure? What would you say to those people?
First of all, I was anxious because I am only a beginner in TYPO3, so I feel like not to be able to do some patch or something like that, to do some task. But there is a lot of tasks with a lot of different level, so all the people can do something and to be able to do some task and finish the task. And the most important is to meet the people and know how the engine works.
Yeah.
So I think it's the most important.
So there's a range of different tasks people can get involved with. Some are very easy, some are very hard, and there's probably something just right for everyone.
Yes.
To kind of pick up and run with.
Yes, exactly, yes.
Morgan, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I hope you had a good time with us as well. And will we see you at the Developer Days this year?
Yes,
Yeah?
I hope.
Excellent.
Yes.
I look forward to seeing you then. Thanks for stopping by.
Thank you so much, you too.
Roosby, thank you very much for joining us. It's Thursday morning. We're on the final day of this week's community sprint. I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about yourself and some of the work you've been doing this week.
Okay, yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. My name is Roosby, as you said. The name is a bit complicated, so in general, everybody calls me Robert, even with my parents. I'm Austrian. I live currently in Portugal, and I'm a programmer, of course. I was in the last, around 20 years, I was working as a PHP developer and JavaScript developer. And in the past years, I also had a great focus on Node.js. And TYPO3 was always something that was always latently in my career next to me. I used to work for many years as a TYPO3 developer in different agencies and so on.
And this week, did you have a specific project or goal in mind you wanted to achieve?
Yes. Technically, it was about some kind of slug generation. There's a story behind this. I was, I think 2 years ago, I was having some issues with some part of the core, and I was writing my issues down in the issue board of TYPO3. And I don't know if I read it today, maybe it would sound a bit rude. Like always in the internet, you forget that the people are working voluntary on the stuff and putting their heart and their time on it, many hours until the deep night. And after that, I think half a year later, after my issue that I mentioned, Benny answered me. And his answer was so honest. He said, yeah, I did that at a time where we didn't have so much time and we had to finish that task. And from today's perspective, of course, I would do it also different. But you're always free to contribute, he said. And that hit me because I was thinking, yeah, that was a very good diplomatic, true and honest answer. So after that, I think half a year later, I had some time, some spare time, and I sat down and worked for a week or so to do my contribution, to kind of apologize in a programmer way.
So you essentially discovered an issue, you raised it as an issue.
Yes.
And then Benny in the community came back and said, hey, we've got the resources to get you in, and if you want to try and contribute a fix, we'll take you through it.
Yes, kind of. But, it's a bit different because it was not like, hey, we want to get you in here and do the contribution. It was more like, instead of complaining, you can also contribute. It's open source. Remember that. And then I remembered and I tried it, and it was my first contribution of this size. And to be honest, it was far too big. And that brought me here because there is somebody that needs that change that I was addressing and for further work. And he was interested in, how do you say, like, reincarnate that branch that I created. And I think he tried to bring me here, so I have a direct talk in person with Stefan and Lolly, who kind of lead me through that.
So this is your very first sprint with us. And I remember when we met on the Sunday night before the sprint, you commented on how welcomed you felt when you met everyone. Could you just touch on that a little bit more? Because it's something I've noticed throughout the years with my time in the community as well. And I'd really like you to share your experience as well, because I thought it was really, really nice.
Yeah. Yes, I think this is also very important to share. Is I was working for many years as a programmer for agencies, or for specific customers. And there it's all about you finish something and it works and it's done. And with that, I mean, in 20 years, you gain quite some experience as a developer, okay? And there is always these open source tools that you're using, like TYPO3 in my case. And it's a bit from outside, you would, as a senior developer, let's say, okay, I don't want to talk too good about myself, but I would now say that I'm kind of a senior developer, at least for the real world business. I did a lot. From outside, it is like you have some kind of distance to that open source communities. It's stuff that you use. And you would not expect that there is so much interest from a community that are people that, people that use TYPO3, they know the name Stefan or Lolly, or they know the name Benny. You see it in videos, you see it and so on. And from outside, you would not believe, if you come for the first time to such a sprint here, that the people are welcoming and that the people actually are interested in knowing more about the people that use the systems and what's their background. And that was my first impression I had. And I can definitely, I think it's very important especially for developers like me that always worked for customers for money, never in the open source area, to have that experience once. It's different. It's very different. And we don't know, I don't know what's the marketing strategy behind it to make the barrier a bit smaller, but you would not believe how easy it is. I don't know if easy is the right word, to get into the community and to contribute and to get to know the people.
So to wrap up, what would you say to anyone listening who's, say, a junior or mid-level developer, or somebody who wants to contribute something else to the project, and they're kind of on the fence about getting involved and making contact with us? What would you say to that person who wants to do it, but they're not quite ready to do it yet? What advice would you have?
Just do it and do small things. It's very helpful if you do small things. You help the community a lot with it, and it's very thankful because you have, on the one hand, probably you're an enthusiastic developer when you're doing this. And second, if then there is 3 people doing a code review like they do on TYPO3, it's also somehow, we call this in German, we would say Bestätigung. It's somehow, it gives you a good feeling if people take a look at what you're doing and give you feedback on such a high level. And don't have the barrier, don't be afraid to do that step. If you do small steps, I don't know, there's nothing that can go wrong.
Rutger or Robert, thank you very much for stopping by. Safe travels back to Portugal, and I hope to see you again, maybe at the Developer Days this year as well.
I don't know, I have to see a family. It's not so easy for me always.
No problem. Thanks for stopping by, and take care.
It was a pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Inside TYPO3. We hope you enjoyed the conversations.
On next month's episode, we'll be giving you all the tools and tips you need to survive your very first Developer Days conference. You don't want to miss it. We'll see you next month. Take care.
Karlsruhe.
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 Close enough.